Putting Volume 5 into the VCR was really exciting. After the amazing events that had transpired toward the ends of the previous volume, with Rick saving Lisa just in time, only to have to let her go. And MIRIYA finally finding the Micronian pilot whom she'd felt humiliated her, only for him to humiliate her again. And poor Max. He simply had no idea what he was getting into. Max was no stranger to being around pretty girls, from the lovely ladies of the bridge, to even being friends with the glamorous Minmay, whom everyone seemed to find ridiculously good-looking, and he couldn't deny it. Max understood what Rick saw in Minmay for sure, not to mention Lisa Hayes. But he was such a level-headed guy, getting caught up in romance and love play was the last thing he needed if he wanted to keep his edge in battle. There'd be time for stuff like that later in life. Then he saw her, a woman with a look like a lioness on the prowl. Of all the thousands of women aboard the SDF-1, none had made his heart skip a beat like this mysterious girl with the green hair. He swore to himself it was more than just her looks. There was something about her, some connection he felt. But what are you gonna do, right? It's probably nothing, and for all he knew, she probably already had a boyfriend or something anyway. Why bother? That's what he told himself, until he saw her in the arcade. And not only did she apparently enjoy the pastime, she was really good. He was convinced. He'd learned to trust his instincts piloting. Maybe he shouldn't dismiss his instincts when it came to girls. After all, if he asked her out, the worst she could do was say no. It's not like she'd try to kill him or something. He was absolutely captivated by her. Sure, she was beautiful, but also the way she talked, the skills she had playing Batroid attack. It was like he'd found the perfect woman. She seemed pretty upset at losing their match, though. But he just had to make sure he could see her again before she ran off. And he was so happy she agreed to meet him later. He was also so nervous, asking Rick about his outfits, keeping the tie, but apparently Rick had talked him out of the gold chain he'd considered. Rick had also told him the best place to take a girl was the fountain in the park. Maybe they could get their picture taken. Max had been waiting patiently, eager to make up to her that she'd lost their match and show her a good time, but she had yet to show up, and he started getting concerned.
Geez, it's getting late. I hope she's all right. I can't believe I asked her to meet me here in the park. A girl at night. She could get mugged or something.
Maximilian, prepare for your doom!
MIRIYA, there you are. It's nice to see you could make it. Huh? Ah! Hey, are you crazy?
I am Quadrano leader MIRIYA Perina, Zentraedi Air Force.
So far, this date was not going the way Max had hoped. He was alarmed and more than a little confused. But even as she expressed the shame she felt, she, the Zentraedi's greatest pilot, how she'd been beaten by him, now time and time again. And how now she must kill him to absolve that shame. He was still hesitant to fight back. She came at him, and he agilely dodged the strike, but was desperate to know why this girl, this Zentraedi girl, would go through all this trouble to murder him directly. Maybe that was even part of the connection he'd felt when he saw her? MIRIYA couldn't stand this man, this Micronian. The things he stirred inside her, the emotions that boiled up at the thought of him. She knew she had to rid herself of all of it, of the humiliation he brought her, the weakness he made her feel in so many ways. Max was fast on his feet, but still caught off guard by the whole situation. He tripped and fell backwards, and MIRIYA seized her moment.
Gotta get that knife!
It's no use. You're no match for me. You may be a great man, but what is a man compared to a Zentraedi?
And now we shall see!
Max was good in a fight, whether it was in the pilot's seat of a BREETAI, hand-to-hand in a barroom brawl, and, as it turns out, he wasn't too shabby with a knife either. Disarming MIRIYA of her blade, he took some small satisfaction that, according to her, he'd defeated her once more. As he held the knife to her, the tables turned. MIRIYA didn't even continue to put up a fight in any way. Sinking to her knees, she can't bear the fact that she'd lost again. She no longer wanted to feel this burden of shame. Even as silent tears begin streaming down her face, she begs Max to end her life. Max was shocked at this request, his heart empathetically tortured, feeling her pain with her. However, he was sure the feeling she felt, the connection between the two of them, went beyond any rivalry as warriors. Max decided to trust his instincts fully, that there was some greater bond he shared with MIRIYA. As he gently raised her head, she looked into his eyes, and that bond was understood by both of them in that moment. MIRIYA had never felt anything like it before. It was like they were both floating along. Gravity, space, time, revenge. None of it had any meaning, as her shame and despair were replaced by something new and wonderful. Max embraced her with care, with desire, with his heart given to her as we see him kiss her, reflected in the same knife she tried to plunge into his heart. She would have taken it, but now he gave it to her willingly, and knew he wanted to do so forever.
This is gonna sound crazy, but will you marry me?
Marry? What's marry?
It's something no words can describe. MIRIYA, it's love, and that's the most beautiful thing there is.
Maximilian Sterling was the greatest ace of the human race. He had now completely defeated MIRIYA Perino, hailed as the Zentraedi's greatest warrior in battle. He hadn't defeated her with mecha or missiles, or even knives, really. Instead, he had won with love. As sudden as all of this was, it was complicated further by the fact that MIRIYA was an enemy pilot, and one who had certainly racked up many names on the casualty roster. Max knew that if MIRIYA was to be accepted by his fellow officers, he'd have to start with the one man who would certainly understand the complications brought about by being in love. The hustle and bustle of the crew's main cafeteria included Sammy, Vanessa, and Kim hosting Rico, Conda, and Braun for breakfast. They were not only the ambassadors of the Zentraedi defectors, it seemed they had become good friends with the girls from the bridge ever since that disco excursion. But their spirits were currently low, as they were losing hope that the Earth had any place for them, their appeals for settlement so far unanswered. Conda worries they'll all be stranded in space forever. Sammy and Kim offer words of encouragement, as another passerby summons up the courage he needs for a very different discussion, one that wouldn't be easy. Rick was enjoying some coffee when Max somewhat formally asks if he can join him. Rick could tell Max had been up all night, and found himself curious how Max's date had gone.
Excuse me, Lieutenant. I've been looking for you. Mind if I sit down?
Of course not, Max. Just tell me, what's on your mind?
Well, it's about last night. I think I'm going to get married.
You're gonna what?
Marry. I guess.
Why, that's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. You only went on one date. Don't you think you should get to know each other?
Wait a minute,
Huh?
you don't understand. We're in love.
Max knew how it sounded, but he couldn't describe exactly what he meant. And even as he said it, he knew that it was probably the weakest reasoning he could have given to Rick Hunter, of all people.
Listen here, Max. If you take my advice, you'll think about this and give it some time, okay?
It's not the time that bothers me, Lieutenant. It's,
What is
I'm
it?
not sure how to say this, but she's the enemy. She's confessed that she's a Zentraedi.
What? Zentraedi? How could you let this happen? I can't believe you could have made such a gigantic mistake.
Max knew this conversation wouldn't go smoothly, but he was sweating at how poorly he was handling it. Not to mention Rick's full-throttle rebuttal at the prospect of Max marrying this girl. But what really upset Max is when Rick said this was a gigantic mistake. If there was one thing Max was sure of, this was no mistake.
I love her.
Max, you're talking nonsense. You have absolutely nothing in common.
I am telling you that I love her, and there is no problem that love cannot overcome.
There is one problem, and that's your silly idealism. Love isn't gonna make you happy, believe me.
No one can blame Rick for being so cynical on the matter of love, but he was being a little harsh. Yet, no matter how much sense he was trying to talk into his buddy, Max had never been so sure of any decision in his life, whether Rick saw that or not.
It doesn't matter what you say. I am going to marry this girl with or without your approval.
Max, be sensible. Listen to reason. Okay, you're attracted to this girl. How many times has that happened to a guy?
That's what I am trying to say. She's not just any girl. She's special.
I can tell you like her a lot.
I'd like you to meet her.
Oh?
I brought her along.
Here? This should be interesting.
Oh, hi.
Huh?
We were just talking about you.
You were right, Max. Gosh, she is beautiful. I understand what you mean.
I'm so pleased to meet you. You're just the way Max described you.
Rick had seen her just the day before, from a distance, as she was hunched over the arcade. But he was rather taken with MIRIYA, actually meeting her up close. I don't know if he was picturing some Zentraedi monster or what, but he turns into a bit of a buffoon as she smiles warmly at him. All cute in her coquettish dress, filling the cafeteria with charm. I'd like to think that it was more than good looks that set Rick off into such a vaudevillian bit. It seems to me that MIRIYA simply has this amazing new warmth and glow to her, especially in the presence of Max. The kind of palpable electricity in the room that only new and true love can generate. It's almost like Rick can feel what Max was trying to express before, and now that he does, he immediately changes his tune, becoming the supportive best friend Max had hoped to find this morning.
Perhaps I was wrong about this. I can't tell you what a lucky man you are to have found someone like her, and forget all of that nonsense I said.
Huh?
In fact, to guarantee you have a great wedding day, I plan to be there to help you kiss the bride.
There must have been some more hurdles to overcome as this wedding was announced, but there was just something so exciting about the very prospect of a human and a Zentraedi getting married. Preparations were made quickly, and the entire ship joined in on the celebration as this union was to be made between these two peoples, two cultures, two races who were currently at war. From the Prometheus of Valhallan Rainbow Bridge extended out into space, a beam of light rolled out like a red carpet, lined on either side by dozens of Veritech fighters. An honor guard to welcome the happy couple as they approached the ship together in Max's fighter, both of them dressed appropriately for their impending nuptials. It was more than Max could have ever hoped for, more than MIRIYA even knew possible. And for each of them it was, very simply, the happiest day of their lives. The broadcast of the ceremony did not go unnoticed by the Zentraedi, as BREETAI and Exodor take in the event.
This is a strange Micronian custom, Exodor. May I ask what MIRIYA is doing?
Your Excellency, if I am not mistaken, she is getting married.
Married? What do you mean by getting married, Exodore?
According to my research, it is a condition in which male and female live together.
Live together? MIRIYA Farina is going to live together with this Micronian male?
Correct, my lord.
It seems she's taking her job very seriously. Perhaps more seriously than she should. Unless my senses deceive me, it would seem she was enjoying herself in the most peculiar way. I wonder, Exodore, could it be that she too has found the Micronian way of life too enjoyable to resist?
It would appear, sir, that she can't resist the charm of that Micronian ace pilot. The danger of contact with the Micronians is evident. Our soldiers may be in more jeopardy than we believed.
It appears that this love business is a very powerful thing.
I'm afraid I agree with you, sir. It does have its attraction. It's an emotional factor against which we Zentraedi have no defense. So this love could be used as a powerful weapon against us.
Weapon,
We
eh?
must beware.
Exodore and BREETAI were finally beginning to understand the true power of the people of Earth. Their assumption that it was a destructive force to overpower their foes had been misguided. Yet BREETAI began to realize this weapon they employ was far smaller and simpler, and had now, curiously, beaten the Zentraedi's best warrior in MIRIYA. The wedding cake shaped like the STF-1 was a nice touch as Rick watched his friend Max cut it together with his bride. Rick hadn't bothered to bring a +1 flying solo on this mission himself, but he couldn't help but think of Ben at this time, knowing their missing third member of Vermilion Squad would have been ecstatic for his fellow wingman on this day. After the ceremony itself, the happy couple and their guests had settled in as the MC introduced the guest of honor presiding over these festivities.
Ladies and gentlemen, today is a very special day. It's more than just a wedding celebration. It's a bonding of two souls dedicated to the protection of our ROBOTECH colony. I would like now to introduce the man who consented to this special occasion, the guest of honor, Captain Henry J. Gloval.
Well, to begin with, I would like to extend my heartfelt congratulations to Max and MIRIYA, for this wedding carries with it a great historical significance. As you all know, MIRIYA was a Zentraedi warrior who destroyed many of our own ships. She comes from a culture that we have grown to fear and hate.
Oh no!
Clearly, it is the Zentraedi who have caused our present situation. They alone prevent our return to Earth, our homes, and our beloved families. It is they who have caused injury, destruction, and endless suffering.
Captain, please.
It was a quiet plea from Max, one that Rick echoed. This wasn't like Captain Gloval at all. Where was he going with this? How could he possibly ruin this auspicious occasion with such hateful rhetoric? However, the captain was simply making a point, showing that it was easy to remain spiteful and bigoted towards an enemy and harbor perpetual ill will towards them. But there was a higher road, a better way, one that Captain Gloval taught me and so many of us who have watched this saga by giving one of the greatest speeches of all time.
Now, I know what you are thinking. Why is he choosing this time to remind us of these terrible things? I remind you of these brutal acts, ladies and gentlemen, because we must learn to forgive our enemies. We do not forgive blindly or out of ignorance, but because we are a strong and willing nation. We cannot blame the Zentraedi for this inexplicable lust for war. They have never known another way of life, and it is their only means of survival. Nor can we condemn the individuals of that society for the mass insanity of their war machine. Instead, we must look to their good nature. Now, some have made the request to stop the fighting, and I believe it is a genuine request. We must respond with equal integrity. The blood of both these young people was tested before the ceremony. Zentraedi blood was found to be exactly the same as human blood. There is no reason why we cannot coexist in peace, so let this occasion represent a future where all people live in harmony. Please allow me to speak just a moment longer.
What a leader of men for peace!
Captain Gloval is a man of peace, there's no doubt. Who wants peace?
It's easy to be like this fella by the fountain, someone who has surely lost loved ones in this conflict between the SDF-1 and the Zentraedi. But Captain Gloval was correct. We must learn to forgive our enemies, not blindly or out of ignorance, but because we are a strong and willing nation. After all, we are all the same deep down, much like how the humans and the Zentraedi are genetically essentially identical. If two people from very different places, backgrounds, and cultures can come together in harmony, the way Max and MIRIYA have, the way the Zentraedi defectors did, then surely we can all set aside our differences and find a way to live in harmony. Even as the people of the SDF-1 and Macross City cheered as the captain spoke, he continued, sympathizing with folks like the man by the fountain, while also challenging them to overcome their harbored feelings of ill will. This sentiment was not shared by Lisa's father, who watched the ceremonies along with Lisa in his quarters and seemed rather stressed out, smoking what was clearly not his first cigarette of the day.
I am sure there are those who have lost loved ones during the war and cannot help harboring ill feelings for the Zentraedi. But somehow we must overcome these feelings. We must stop this senseless destruction.
He's crazy. I can't understand Global talking about peace at a time like this.
Father, it's the only way to avoid our own destruction. If we don't start talking peace, it will mean the end of the world, and not even you would want that.
Lisa!
I'm sorry, Father, but you must stop the Grand Cannon operation immediately.
It's too late to do anything about that now.
Each and every citizen must develop a responsible attitude toward the prospect of peace. We must learn from our mistakes to live with different people, different nations. Think of the challenge. I am not proposing laying down our arms, but extending them in friendship, so that if there is a chance of a peaceful solution, we can find it together, as these young people have done. The Zentraedi are a strong and intelligent people. Therefore, let this act here today stand as a symbol of our approval. We must follow their example. They are the heroes of today.
May they have a long and prosperous marriage.
Hooray for Zentraedi, our friend!
Hail Captain Global!
Peace between our people!
Long live the captain!
Long live the Zentraedi!
Long live peace!
Think of it. Maybe there's some hope at last for our two races. What a wonderful thing this is to celebrate. Peace throughout the entire universe.
While Captain Henry Global hailed Max and MIRIYA as heroes in their union, representative of the peace that was possible, the supreme commander of all the Zentraedi forces, Lord DOLZA, had seen the danger posed by the Micronians, had heard the risk of further infection and defection of his own people weighed against the worth of capturing the battle fortress. It was now his determination that the costs had been too high. The threat of the Micronian culture unraveling the Zentraedi zone was too great. And the only solution now was to order the annihilation of the battle fortress and all the peoples of Earth. Back on the unsuspecting SDF-1, the festivities continued as special guest Minmay was introduced to an excited applause of Max, MIRIYA, and all present guests, with one notable exception. Minmay offered her heartfelt congratulations to Max and MIRIYA as she introduced her song of choice, and there's no way she didn't notice Rick in the crowd. They still hadn't spoken in a very long time, as she was not only busy, but still somewhat torn when it came to him. And he was just hurt by what he felt was her rejection, and that she'd seemingly chosen Kyle over him. Minmay was a professional, though, and her own inner turmoil remained hidden as she performed for the wedding couple and their guests. Her song and voice were as touching as ever, and stirred Rick's heart as his thoughts turned to the people he missed most, which certainly included Lisa. Her voice even carried over to BREETAI's ship, impressing further upon him the secret power of the Micronians and these feelings they stirred.
Okay, folks, the beautiful Minmay will now sing a song dedicated especially to the wedding couple.
This woman has a voice that can make a man feel sorrow.
Commander BREETAI, forgive the interruption. I bring you orders of utmost security from the Commander-in-Chief of all Zentraedi forces, DOLZA.
Hail DOLZA!
You are ordered to begin a full-scale assault on the enemy battle forces. There are to be no survivors, whatever the cost. That is all.
A special man
Well, Your Excellency?
It grieves me that the time has finally come. I do not look forward to this task at all. It may sound strange, but it's true.
BREETAI had suspected this was inevitable the longer this campaign had gone on. Perhaps they should have destroyed the battle fortress and the Micronians upon their first encounter and saved themselves all of this trouble, if this was to be the end. Yet the order was given, and BREETAI issued it forth. This didn't necessarily mean it would be obeyed, though.
I don't want to fight. Move it! I feel as though I were going to be fighting against my own people.
What? Do you realize what the penalty is for disobeying Imperial orders?
He's right. We will have to fight.
Let's move.
Lord BREETAI demands that you prepare to attack.
So beautiful, yet so small.
Zentraedi, you are in direct violation of Imperial orders. You are to report to your battle stations immediately.
What did you say?
What? Don't be foolish. This has gone too far.
It doesn't matter what you say. We have decided we aren't fighting anymore. We have friends on that ship, and that's where we draw the line. Now leave.
Look at him run like a troll, with his tail between his ears.
Enough Zentraedi soldiers had mobilized to form a formidable host against the battle fortress, causing alarms to blare in the middle of the wedding reception. All soldiers scrambled for battle, while the civilians headed for shelters. The commander of Max's air wing excused him from battle, but even on his wedding day, Max could not in good conscience allow his fellow soldiers to fight without him. He apologized to MIRIYA, who understood better than Max would have suspected. She understood so well that she insisted on going with him.
I won't let my comrades down when they need me most.
Max, I'll go with you.
Huh?
I can fly these Robotech planes as well as any of your pilots.
No!
I have promised that I would stay by your side, and I will. From now on, we fight together.
Well, if you're that determined, then I have no choice but to let you, even though it may be dangerous.
Yes.
We'll have to hurry. So much for the honeymoon.
Rick led the Veritech fighters in Skull 1 to defend the ship from the incoming horde, while Captain Gloval watched these brave men and women fly out, praying for their safety. Max joined the other fighters with MIRIYA riding behind him in the cockpit, having mixed feelings about going into battle against her fellow Zentraedi. As the battle began, the many battle pods attacked as fiercely as ever. Rick and the others attempted to thin out their numbers, but this wasn't just a skirmish. The Zentraedi were out for total destruction this time. Max lined up a target, but MIRIYA makes him wait until he lines up his sights with a specific section of the enemy battle pod. He fires and clearly disabled the pod, but confirms with MIRIYA if that was her intent. She expresses her desire not to see more Zentraedi killed, and although Max worries what his superiors will say, he accedes to MIRIYA's wishes. As he disables more and more battle pods, leaving them helpless in space, Rick confronts Max, who apologizes, and yet Rick completely understands. He even joins Max in his effort to leave the Zentraedi pilots alive as they cripple their mecha. BREETAI and Exodore analyze the battle and see what the Micronian fighters are doing. That, mixed with the borderline treason of many of their own soldiers refusing to fight, and BREETAI's own stirrings he'd felt from hearing the voice of that female Micronian siren. He couldn't help but feel like this was all wrong. This was not the way. These Micronians had proven themselves to be true warriors in the face of unwinnable odds. How could BREETAI not respect such valor? There was more to discover yet, more to that battle fortress and the people aboard than merely the secrets of Zor. BREETAI ordered that all forces be recalled, even as he's reminded by Exodore that such an order is in direct disobedience of High Command. BREETAI is aware of that, and although he had not yet determined which path he would follow, he knew one thing. The Micronians would not be destroyed this day.
Captain, would you look at that? It's a miracle. All the the enemy divisions appear to be turning back and leaving, sir.
Yes, we're very lucky. I wonder if their retreat had something to do with the wedding.
Attention all Veritech squadrons. The enemy has broken off its attack and is now retreating. All defense forces are ordered to regroup and return to ship immediately.
Max! What's happening? It's on fire!
What? No, honey, get out of the way. I'll try and put it out. Stand back. It's okay. Look, just stand back. I'll take it.
Am I going crazy or is this just a bad dream? Ugh.
MIRIYA, you're just gonna have to try and be a little more careful.
But I used only a little dash of liquid that I got out of this bottle. I'm sorry. Oh.
It says oil here, MIRIYA. Oil catches fire.
It says for cooking.
You cooked the coffee pot.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Well, mornings are really gonna be rough around here without any coffee. Oh, boy. Well, I guess we'll live through it.
Even though he was a little vexed at the noise of his neighbors, Rick couldn't help but be happy for Max, even envious in a way. Sure was strange how things turn out. Who would have known Max would marry that girl from the arcade, and she'd turn out to be an alien? His own love life, at least, was far more straightforward, albeit less successful. It had been strange to lock eyes with Minmay that day, her expression unreadable to him, reaffirming the callousness he'd built around his heart concerning her. Unavoidably, his heart, his thoughts, once again returned to Lisa on the Earth, knowing he rather liked her. Maybe even... He drifted off to sleep, lost in the thought. Peace had settled over the ship after a rather momentous day aboard. It had been a great day of celebration, yet none of the people aboard truly understood how close they had come to utter annihilation, and how a single decision of the enemy commander caused them to narrowly avoid it.